The morning sun poured gently over the open-air food market, casting long golden beams across the vendors' tables, catching the dust in the air, illuminating the start of a normal day that would soon become anything but ordinary. The smell of freshly baked bread, simmering spices and sweet fruit filled the air, but despite the inviting atmosphere, one man stood tense, alert, and oddly anxious. His clothes were faded, his shoes worn, and his eyes carried the weight of too many sleepless nights. His name was Aarav Malik, a poor single father who had learned to survive by trusting his instincts. He stood near a small fruit stall, wiping sweat from his brow as he counted the few coins he had left for the day, each one representing not just money, but survival for him and his 6-year-old daughter, Nira. What happened next was so sudden, so shocking, that everyone in the market froze. A wealthy woman in a pristine cream-colored suit, her diamond bracelets sparkling like tiny suns, reached out to sample a piece of fresh-cut mango from a tray at a vendor's stand. As her hand lifted it toward her mouth, Aarav's voice thundered across the market with shocking intensity. He shouted, "Don't eat that food!" The market turned silent. Heads spun, eyes widened. The woman's hand froze inches from her lips, and in that moment, something unimaginable surfaced, something only Aarav had noticed, something that would change everyone's understanding of judgment, kindness, and the hidden battles people fight. Before we dive deeper into this powerful story, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance in this world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Everyday Kindness. Your support helps us spread real stories that restore faith in humanity. What people didn't know was that Aarav had been watching the vendor, an older man with trembling hands and a nervous expression, since early morning. Aarav had seen him picking through half-rotten crates behind the market, selecting pieces that looked presentable on the outside but were spoiled within. Aarav had recognized the signs instantly because he had once fallen victim to similar deceit years ago, during a time when he desperately needed every rupee to care for his newborn daughter. That moment had taught him the painful lesson that not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well. So when he saw the wealthy woman reach for that fruit, something in him reacted faster than reason. His shout wasn't out of anger but pure instinct, the instinct of a father who had spent years protecting the only family he had left. The rich woman, who introduced herself moments later as Samaira, stood frozen, shocked by the outburst. Her polished appearance and self-assured posture suggested she was someone used to respect, not sudden warnings screamed across a busy street. But when she looked into Aarav's eyes, she didn't find hostility. She found fear, concern, and something deeper. It was as if he had shouted to save her, not embarrass her. Aarav didn't wait for applause or understanding. With trembling hands, he picked up another piece of the fruit from the tray, pressed gently between his fingers, and revealed the dark, mushy, foul-smelling center hidden beneath the bright surface. The vendor paled, unable to defend himself as murmurs rippled across the market. Samaira, who had lived most of her life in luxury and trusted environments, had never encountered someone shouting to save her from being cheated or harmed. She felt a strange mix of gratitude and confusion. Most people in her circles only approached her with calculated politeness. But this man, this poor single father, had acted without hesitation or expectation. It startled her more than she could admit. As the crowd dispersed, Aarav simply turned away, gathering a small cloth bag of vegetables he had set aside earlier. He wasn't trying to make a scene, and he certainly wasn't chasing attention. He had no idea who Samaira was, or that she was one of the country's most influential corporate leaders. He was simply trying to stretch his last 100 rupees to cook one decent meal for his daughter. He started walking home through the quiet streets behind the market, where stray dogs lay lazily in the shade, and children kicked old plastic bottles as makeshift footballs. His home, a tiny room with cracked walls, a flickering bulb, and a wobbly fan, waited for him, like a fragile shelter from the world. Yet, inside that room, Nira always waited with the brightest smile, as if she saw him not as a struggling father, but as the hero of her small universe. Samaira, however, couldn't let the moment go. Something about his voice, His expression, the way he shielded a stranger without thinking of himself, stayed with her. She followed him quietly, keeping a respectful distance, curiosity tugging at her heart. She wasn't used to seeing genuine kindness from someone with nothing, and as she watched him enter a small, run-down building, clutching just a few vegetables to feed his child, something inside her shifted. Inside the room, Aarav knelt before his daughter with a gentle smile. He brushed her hair aside, told her about the day, and pretended everything was normal. While he cooked, he hummed her favorite tune, hiding the exhaustion pulling at his bones. He didn't know Samaira had reached the doorway until she knocked softly. Seeing her standing there with her expensive clothes and immaculate appearance made him instantly self-conscious. He stood straighter, wiped his hands and apologized again for shouting earlier, thinking perhaps she felt offended, but she surprised him by thanking him, her voice soft, her eyes sincere. She told him she had never encountered someone who warned her with such urgency and honesty, and she admitted she followed him because she wanted to understand what kind of man could care that much for strangers. Aarav hesitated, unsure how much to share with someone who lived a life so different from his. But as she stepped inside and saw the faded curtains, the tiny stove, the mismatched cups, and little Nira drawing flowers on paper scraps, something softened in her expression. It wasn't pity. It was admiration. Aarav told her his story in one long breath, the loss of his wife during childbirth, the years of juggling odd jobs, the days he went hungry to ensure Nira ate, the sacrifices that had slowly stripped him of comfort but strengthened his heart. He shared how he never allowed his poverty to dull his sense of right and wrong, and how he always warned others if he sensed danger. Samaira listened without interrupting, every word pulling her deeper into the quiet strength of this man she had met by chance. She felt humbled by him, inspired by him, and strangely connected to him. The next morning, Samaira returned, bringing fresh groceries, not as charity, but as gratitude. She asked if she could spend time with Nira, who instantly adored her. Together they cooked, cleaned, laughed, and created the beginnings of a bond that none of them expected. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, a beautiful rhythm formed. Samaira visited often, sharing her world gently, carefully, without ever making Aarav feel small. And Aarav in turn shared wisdom she had never learned in boardrooms, the value of small joys, the strength of surviving storms, and the courage found in love. But the biggest transformation came when Samaira discovered that Aarav was a talented but unnoticed mechanic, capable of restoring vehicles with remarkable skill. He had abandoned his dream years earlier, believing it was impossible for someone as poor as him. Without telling him, she arranged a meeting at her company's automotive division, presenting his work samples that she had quietly gathered. When the executives watched videos of his repairs and restorations, they were stunned. They offered him a trial position with a salary that was beyond anything he had ever earned. When Samaira brought Aarav to the office and revealed the opportunity, he stood speechless. His eyes filled with tears he tried to hide. For the first time in years, he saw a different future, one where he wasn't merely surviving but rising, building a life where Nira could dream without limits. And he realized that all of this happened because of one moment, one shout, one act of instinctive kindness. As Aarav's life transformed, Samaira grew closer to him and Nira. They weren't becoming a family out of convenience, but out of shared values, mutual respect, and a connection built on some deeper, inexplicable truth. The market vendors who once stared at Aarav with judgment now treated him with pride. They spoke with admiration about the day he saved a woman from spoiled fruit, not knowing she would become the person who changed his entire destiny. And so, what began as a moment of tension became a turning point that brought two very different lives together. The rich woman who had everything discovered the richness of genuine kindness, and the poor single dad who had nothing found, not just opportunity, but companionship, dignity, and hope. If this story touched your heart, or reminded you that kindness is still alive in this world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Everyday Kindness. Your one action help spread more stories like this. Before we close, here is a small special request. Please comment, "Kindness lives here," if you want more real emotional stories every week. Because in the end, it only takes one brave moment, one shout, one warning, one act of empathy to change the course of a life forever.